WarchantTV. That's Corey Clark. Hey, what's up, buddy? I'm Jeff Cameron, and we're talking about that final top 5, really specifically today, number 3. Don't forget, like and subscribe to WarchantTV and Warchant.com. That way you get interesting content like this. Johnny Wilson is the man that we're talking about today as he comes in on Warchant's Top 40 at number 3. And it's not surprising that he's in the top 5. We both had him high on the list, of course. And Johnny Wilson, though, Corey, I think is poised to have an even bigger season. I'm kind of curious where your head goes when you think about Johnny Wilson. I know he's 6'7". I know for his size, he really runs well. But I specifically think that he's got another gear to go in terms of consistency.
Oh, absolutely. Like, we talk about Trey Benson, who was 4th on this list. David Johnson, when we talked to him before the spring, was like, yeah, Trey Benson was really good. He left 300 or 400 yards out there with some cuts he made or some bad reads or not running as physical as they wanted him to. You could say the same about Johnny Wilson. I think he had like 900 yards receiving or something like that. He easily dropped probably 200 to 250 yards in passes. If he can take those drops from I don't know, man, 8 to 3, you're talking about an extra couple hundred yards because it ain't like those drops were 4-yard pitches. They were 40-yard posts that could have gone 80. Like he dropped some big ones against Florida, but the beauty about Johnny Wilson was he had 2 or 3 really critical drops against Florida. One on a perfect throw by Jordan in the back of the end zone that maybe puts that game away much earlier than it was. But then he comes back and makes that huge catch on 3rd down that gets the game-winning touchdown drive going. So he always showed the ability to bounce back. And he has a chance, especially with the kid on the other side of the field, he has a chance to have a monster year in 2023.
Yeah, I think this is the kind of the theme here. You bring up Trey Benson. It's a good point. I did that video about Trey, and I said the same thing. Like, you can look at his game log, and you'll see 5 carries, 22 yards, 9 carries, 17 yards, 20 carries, 185 yards.
Yeah.
So it's like the consistency could be there. You look at Johnny Wilson. I'll do it for us right now since we're talking about it. Obviously, he got a little dinged in that Duquesne game, but he had the 51-yard reception. But then from there, it's 3 catches, 60 yards against LSU, 7 catches, 149 yards where he goes nuts against Louisville and basically wins the game.
Yeah.
From there, it's 2 catches for 12 yards, 6 catches, 2 catches, 6 catches, 3 catches, 2 catches, 1 catch, 2 catch. Like, he can be so much better. I really think it's not just the drops, it's the consistency. He learned a lot about himself and this offense last year. I think he can be counted upon. But you're right, having Keon Coleman on the other side to go along with these tight ends, Corey,
yeah,
and he's going to get matchups and opportunities in a way he didn't get last year.
Yeah, and when he's one-on-one, it's either throw it up, he either doesn't catch it or it's a huge play. That seems to be the 2 options. I thought there were times where they didn't throw him the ball enough last year, just like you remember the Syracuse game. I think McClain had a play where he just caught a 2-yard hitch, shoved the DB down and scored. Johnny Wilson did it the very next drive. It's like you would think they'd do that a little more with Johnny Wilson just because there aren't dudes like that. And 6-foot cornerbacks aren't used to tackling guys that can Heisman them from 3 feet away. And he'll just push them down. And I think they might use that a little more. It's not just going to be posts and, back shoulder throws down the sidelines. I think it could be a lot of just, okay, they're going to play 12 yards off him. Just throw him a hitch, he'll fall forward for a first down.
He's a guy that, we remember mostly at the end of the year. You talk about the big 25-yard catch against Florida to put the game away. He only had 2 catches that game, and he dropped several others, like you said. He had the 8 catches against Oklahoma where he goes nuts for over 200 yards. He also put the ball on the ground there, too, so he could have been
he dropped like a 60-yarder. He dropped a 60-yarder in that game, yeah.
So he's a guy that, honestly – I just expect week in and week out this year, instead of these game logs where it's 1 catch followed by 4 catches, followed by 2 catches, followed by 7 catches, I think you're going to see a more consistent 4 to 5 catches every game. They got to go to a guy like that. I think he'll have some of those crazy games like we saw against Oklahoma, and I think he'll be a star this year. It's interesting when we talk about this offense. This top 40 list has been fun to do, Corey, because we look at all the options they have and all the very good players they have. I was saying the other day on the air that, you know what? At the end of the year, the numbers may not bear out just how good this offense is going to be, because I think because of players like Johnny Wilson and the others that complement him, they're going to blow a lot of teams out, Corey, and sit a lot of these guys in the second half of games. If you're up 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, you're not playing all these guys.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good bridge to cross when you get there, right? You're sitting your best players down in the fourth quarter, and Jordan's wearing a baseball hat. I think one thing that to counter that will be last year they didn't have a quarterback that was in the Heisman race. This year they might and probably will, especially if he plays well in September in the 2 big games. And if that's the case, you do need to put up some numbers, and you do need to put up, you don't. Jordan Travis had a remarkable year last year, but there were games where he only completed 11 passes or 13 passes. I think they're going to throw it more. I think they're going to hopefully go faster. I know the tempo of play will change a little bit with the clock rules, but I do think that and also I hope, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. I hope they don't sub as much at wide receiver as they did last year. Like, look, if Johnny's tired, have him come out of the game. But you need Johnny. Nick Saban has no problem playing his 2 stud receivers 60 snaps a game. You can do that with Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman, especially in the games that matter, especially until the games are out of reach. And then you let the other guys come in, right? Like, you don't want a big pivotal drive where the other team has momentum, even in the second quarter, and Johnny Wilson's not on the field, because Johnny Wilson is a game changer.
But remember, Corey, to your point, and I think you're right, he'll be on the field more this year. But we forget, because of how quickly it's all turned. Going into last year, they did not know Johnny Wilson could be a star player. He had not been a star player at Arizona State, not in the slightest. Throughout camp, he was inconsistent catching the ball. They didn't know that this kid was going to be a guy. Now, certainly they loved his size and they loved the potential, but they had no idea he could take over a football game like he did against Louisville. They had no idea he could do that. They now know he can take over a football game. The last game they ever saw him play last season against Oklahoma, he took over the football game. So they now know that. Keon Coleman was a star at Michigan State last year. He, in a terrible offense, he was the bright spot. They know he can stay on the field. I think your core receivers are going to be on the field a lot this year. And I think the advantage of this offense is that those guys are all multiple. Since we're talking about Johnny Wilson specifically at number 3, the number one thing he does, and he only had, 5 touchdowns last year?
Yeah.
The number one thing he does, Corey, is he is a monster blocking down the field. Now, he's an elite receiver. We think he's going to emerge as one anyhow, but he is selfless. You have to be selfless to block, and all of them buy into that. And what does that mean? It means you stay on the field. I don't have to take you off. I can run whatever I want to run. If I want to run the football this drive, you stay on the field because you block. If I want to throw it to you because you're 6'7" and you're a matchup problem, you stay on the field. I can keep you out there and we can be multiple.
Yeah, for sure. I would maybe push back a little. I think the number one thing he does is make plays down the field. That's what makes him stand out. But that blocking is huge. That blocking is, again, it sets a tone. I thought Micah Pittman was important to the team last year. He'd go games where he had 1 catch, but he was still blocking his butt off. Yeah. And that selflessness seemed to spread across the room. But you have a guy like Johnny Wilson, who I just look at him as like the ultimate safety blanket, comfort blanket for Jordan Travis. You think about, there was the play in the NC State game where they ended up throwing the interception late, but Johnny Wilson starts that drive when they're down. They haven't done anything the entire half, and they're trailing finally. And then they complete a 30-yarder to him down the sideline. And then the Florida game, even though he had dropped a few passes, when it was, testicle cutting time, it's 3rd and 10, and you have no momentum, you throw it up to that kid and he makes that play, and then you go score. And also the Oklahoma game, when it's tied late, you just throw it downfield one-on-one. Like, he made so many plays when it mattered that I think there's a calmness that should come over Jordan Travis, knowing as long as that safety doesn't go over the top, it's one-on-one with my 6'7" guy versus your guy who's not 6'7". And he's not just 6'7", he's 6'7" with ball skills and can run. There just aren't many guys like that. So it must be so reassuring to know if everything else is covered, you still got that dude. And if they do double team him with a safety over the top, well, good luck.
Yeah.
Because then you've got Jaheim Bell, you've got the slot receiver, you got Keon on the other side. But Johnny is such a matchup nightmare that he will get some double coverage. And just have you ever seen the clip of when Steve Kerr is talking to Steph Curry after Steph Curry had a bad
Yeah, he's
half and
talking
they're
about how he
walking off the
affects
court?
the offense, even though
He's
he's
like,
missing shots. Yeah,
look what what your plus minus is was you on the floor.
yeah,
They
yeah.
have to shift everything towards you. So I think there could be some games or at least some halves where Johnny Wilson, Norvell's saying that to Johnny Wilson. Like, look, they're double teaming you. But Jaheim Bell has 5 for 92 because of you. And I think you'll see that a lot.
I think Mike is in a good position to have that conversation with a lot of guys.
Yeah, Johnny won't
Look,
be the only one. Yeah.
yeah. Hey, Trey, I know you're a little upset. You only had 4 carries in the first half. We threw the ball for 370. I mean, like,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
you know what? What do you want me to do here? You're getting double teamed, Keon, but your guy on the other side has 7 catches for $130. We're gonna have to, that's just the way it's going to be. There'll be matchups each game. And by the way, I'm just playing the role of tough love Cameron. He'll get noticed first and foremost for the plays down the field when he catches all of them, Corey. When he catches all of them. That's all that is. That's all that is.
Can you think of anything? Because obviously the good so much outweighs the bad. I'm trying to think of like a good analogy for Johnny Wilson, because he will make you throw your hands up, or he did last year. You threw your hands up probably 5 or 6 times.
Mike Evans.
Well, I was thinking of a different sport. Like if there's somebody in a different sport, if there's a basketball player that will shoot you out of a game occasionally, but then hit 4 huge buckets when you need them. He just reminds me of something. You have to take a little bit of the bad. He's not a perfect football player, but he won you 2 games last year.
Russell Westbrook.
Flat out won you.
Russell Westbrook will shoot you out of a game and take terrible decisions after terrible decision, and then he'll go and score 20 in the fourth to win a game because he gets hot and gets to the rim and you can't stop him. But like you watch a game and you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Great shot.
Yeah. But at the end you look at it and you're like, yeah, he dominated that game. And we're talking about not 2023 Russell Westbrook, NBA nerds. We're talking about MVP Russell Westbrook, or the one that played with Durant. But I think that's Johnny Wilson. There will be some times this year where he'll probably drop a pass or two, but the good so far outweighs the bad, that you have a guy that it's just reassuring. You have a guy that nobody else has. There just aren't dudes like that falling off trees playing college football.
The top 10 and today the top 5, and specifically number 3 is a lot of fun to count down. Florida State's got weapons everywhere, everybody. And today it was number 3, Johnny Wilson. There you see the list. Trey Benson. If I'm just looking at offense, Jaheim Bell, Keon Coleman, and of course the offensive lineman. It's fun to talk about those guys and what this offense can be. And until next time, make sure you like and subscribe. That way you get notified when one of these videos pops up, and you can grade the content yourself and celebrate like everybody else who's excited for the season, including senior writer Corey Clark. I'm Jeff Cameron. Good job, Ben. Be well, everybody. Go Noles.